So we're here at Artechouse and we are absolutely surrounded by this amazing piece by artist MHX. We have him live here as well to talk about his work. MHX, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and also tell us a little bit about what your piece is called and what it means.
Hello, I'm MHX, a 3D artist, generative artist, and I do also motion design. So the piece is called Lattice, and it explores a three-stage spatial experiments, essentially, which are like tied with a thread of a thought being initiated, and then it's turning into a more of a collective thought, and then as a result of it, it impacts spaces and more feedback loops of ideas it generates, and it'll come back and compounds over and starts again, and it explores essentially any abstract idea turning into solid physical results.
This isn't my first time seeing your piece. I've been back a few times, and it's always cool to just see how the audience reacts when they see your piece. I met like an engineer recently, and she said this was actually her favorite piece because of like the architectural setup. So the first question I think we should start off with is like, how does creating something this technical, like from a render to a shader, how do you design this to make people feel something or connect to this kind of space when it's at this scale?
Great question. I think I've started like exploring heavily the the constraints and the positives of the space, what it allows for as an experience. So I've started from there, building like tiny building blocks, like exploring how something moving from one part of the space to another affects the audience, and those were like simple shapes, simple colors at first, and then it slowly evolved into more like sitting on the architecture of the space and exploring and distorting the space. So I think it's kind of in a way, and as a feeling wise, it's like an open script. It has like a bunch of elements that I think speaks to people in different ways. When I've heard people that are experiencing like doing totally different readings than what I did when I was creating the piece. So I think it is abstract enough that you can extract your own reading out of it.
Now we're all the way here in New York and you designed all of this over in Turkey. How did you get around navigating the space virtually to create something as, this is absolutely immense. Like every corner of the canvas has something so specifically detailed. How did you do that at such a distance without ever visiting this space?
Actually, that I think that was the key to like creating a successful piece. So I dedicated a lot of time to model the space in my local environment, like through VR. I have a replica of the space in VR that I can walk around in. So I've been periodically testing every element, every texture I've added in the actual space. Like it's I think it allowed me to have like a sort of a general feeling of at least the scale and the impact, and also like more technical audits to see if everything is working well and things like that. So it's been through immense repetition of tests in VR.
A combination of VR, having the space built virtually, and then continually testing and iterating. I love it.
Yeah.
From originally like designing on screens to now like immersive spaces, how does size, movement, and architecture play a part in how you have to rethink the creation?
Yeah, I think that especially the size of the canvas dictates a lot of stuff, like regarding motion, and that's thankfully this wasn't my first time doing like large scale displays, and so I inherently like knew that things can't be so like flashy or very speedy, because that translates into huge distances in like large spaces. So I think I have like this built-in sense of like how things should move from the get-go. So it was more like rather than like a giant constraint or like hurdle to work in that constraint. It's instead more like playful to knowing the weight of the space and like talking with the, designing with that in mind. So it's actually a lot of fun instead of like a huge challenge, because like things will have a proper impact on scale.
I mean, I'm just mesmerized by this completely. And all of this was rendered on the render network. So I want to ask you, like, how does a tool like, decentralized compute, the render network specifically, how does that unlock creativity for artists like yourself?
Yeah, I think like this kind of project wouldn't even be like feasible without a distributed, decentralized render system, because it's like, huge resolution, and the per piece time is like 3 minutes, so it's like thousands of frames. So like the cost of this on a centralized network would be huge, and also like you don't only render things once. I've probably rendered out this piece like maybe 10 times in total after I was finished, because there are like testings, and you think something is final render, but then it turns out it isn't, so you re-render it. So it's a lot of phases of rendering. So the render network has this ability to like seamlessly take the scene from my computer and render it however it can, and at that point it's off my computer, so I can just keep working on it. So it's like a once you set up your workflow, it's like a smooth process. The total rendering times would be like if I was doing a 1080p project in my local computer, so that's how it was.
I was gonna say, just maybe estimating how long do you think this would have taken locally versus like how long did it actually take on the render network?
It's gonna sound a bit absurd, but I've actually did the math on this, and it was around 26 months of rendering on my local computer to render this out. It's like 2 years plus non-stop computing rendering.
2 years plus of you're just chugging away at rendering versus using the render network. And how long did the final frame rendering for this actually take on the render network? Do you remember?
I think like in total I've spent around like up to a week of total render time, including like the previews and things like that.
That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and I must say I didn't, because the timing was so tight for this project, I didn't go very optimized at all. So it maybe could have been reduced to a few days.
Okay, amazing. And the resolution as well, 18K. Now, I've got to say, in real life, it looks stunning. There's nothing else to really describe it. It looks absolutely incredible. So every single one of those pixels you've used, and you've used incredibly well. Fantastic job with this.
Thank you.
You've mentioned this before, Sonny, and I actually took this from him. The Las Vegas Pier is a 16K resolution.
Yeah.
This is at 18K resolution, but maybe you can dive into like the real technical
Yeah.
So how you compare the two.
So just from 16K up to 18K, so 16K at the Las Vegas Sphere, that's an immense resolution, but 18K is 44% more pixels, which is incredible as well.
Yeah, I've actually done a bit of like oversampling, so I think I rendered out the project near 20K because I was doing like some mapping of the space, so I wanted the final pixels to not be so blurred out or anything because of my processes. So I've sampled it a bit. So it was actually in 20K most of it.
Wow, that's crazy.
How did you picture your audience inside this world?
I mean, because it was like such an experimental process, I've had like bits and pieces of like ideas of, oh, this is how it's gonna translate there and things like that. But I think mostly there are like a bunch of like stimulating aspects of like how I like excite some pixels and like push around some stuff that it triggers some like abstract emotional response in the audiences, but nothing very like tangible or like, oh, this is I don't know, this is pain, this is, I don't know if it connects to random spots and random people. So I've actually heard someone say this was a political piece, which is like very funny because it might be what I didn't plan for, something like that.
Yeah, we're so glad that you actually contributed to this exhibition, and it is fantastic, man. And I know you're unable to come and visit it yourself, but I can tell you firsthand, my kids love it, right? I love it, and it is, I've not felt moved by something so much because there's so much intricacy in this, and also how you've played with the space, and like even sitting here interviewing you at some point, I felt myself moving with with the animation. It's incredible.
Yeah, really happy that all that translated to the actual space. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll absolutely speak to you again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries at all. And that was MHX, the artist who's created this stunning piece behind us. Thank you so much for watching this interview. We will absolutely interview other artists when we're able to. Right. See ya.